Today, we're diving into the Battle of Guadalajara. It's a really pivotal but often overlooked fight from the Spanish Civil War. And let me tell you, it wasn't just another battle. It was a deep, personal humiliation for Mussolini and, honestly, a chilling preview of the World War that was just around the corner. To get a sense of the shockwaves this thing sent across the world, just look at this quote. A New York Times correspondent at the time compared it to one of Napoleon's most infamous defeats. So yeah, this wasn't just some minor skirmish. For a brief, absolutely stunning moment, it really felt like the tide might actually be turning against fascism. All right, let's set the scene. It's early 1937. General Francisco Franco's nationalist forces have been trying to take Madrid, the Spanish capital, for months and months. After a really bloody fight at Jarama, they're just exhausted, completely bogged down. Madrid had become this huge symbol of Republican resistance. Now, what's so crucial to remember here is that this was never just a Spanish fight. Not at all. It was basically a proxy war. You had the Republic on one side, backed by the Soviet Union and all these international volunteers, and on the other, the nationalists, who were getting weapons and support from Nazi Germany and, this is the important part for our story, fascist Italy. So, with Franco's troops stuck in the mud, a new plan was hatched to finally break the deadlock. And this plan? It came straight from Rome, from Benito Mussolini himself. He saw this as the perfect chance to score a glorious, high-profile victory. Mussolini's goal was pretty simple, really. He wanted to show off the overwhelming might of Italian fascism. So he committed this massive force, the Corpo Truppe Volontarie, or CTV. The idea was to use modern blitzkrieg tactics, a super rapid, motorized assault, to just smash through the lines, wrap around Madrid, and hand the capital to Franco on a silver platter. It was supposed to be quick, decisive, and a huge propaganda win. But you know how it goes with the best-laid plans. From the second the offensive kicked off, Mussolini's grand strategy just slammed headfirst into the harsh realities of war. Awful weather, really determined resistance, and, well, total technological failure. And boy, did things go wrong fast. I mean, the Italians made some good progress for the first few days, but then the weather turned. By March 11th, it was just torrential rain and sleet, and the whole battlefield turned into a sea of mud. The advance completely stalled. This gave the Republicans a critical window, a chance to regroup, and by the 12th, to launch their own big counterattack. This battle also turned into a story about technology. The Italian L3 tankettes, these things had narrow tracks and a fixed machine gun. They were completely useless in the mud. They just got stuck, becoming sitting ducks. The Republicans, though, they had Soviet T-26 tanks. We're talking wide tracks, a rotating turret, a powerful cannon. They could handle the terrain and absolutely dominated, just picking off the bogged-down Italian armor with ease. And if the mud wasn't bad enough for the Italians, check out this simple logistical detail. The Republican Air Force? They were flying from an airfield that had a concrete runway. The Italians? Their planes were literally stuck on waterlogged, muddy fields. So this gave the Republicans total air superiority, and they just relentlessly bombed and strafed the trapped Italian columns on the roads below. A total disaster. The Republican victory was just stunning, but to really get it, we have to look a little deeper at who was actually fighting on the Republican side, because as it turns out, they weren't all fighting for the same thing, not by a long shot. And that is the crucial question, isn't it? For so many of the people involved, this wasn't just a war against Franco. It was a revolutionary struggle with some deeply, deeply conflicting goals. Okay, so the split basically boiled down to this fundamental disagreement about the whole purpose of the war. On one side, you had the communists and the mainstream Republicans. Their priority was simple: win the war, save the democratic government, full stop. They wanted a traditional, centralized army. But on the other side, you had this massive anarchist movement led by the CNT, which was Spain's biggest labor union. For them, the war and the revolution were the exact same thing. They weren't fighting to save the old government. They were fighting to create a brand new, classless society. This quote right here gets to the very heart of that conflict. Michel Centrone, an Italian-American anarchist who died in Spain, wasn't remembered for defending a republic. No, he was praised because, as they said, he had gone to Spain to fight for the social revolution. This huge divide, war versus revolution, created massive tensions within the anti-fascist forces that lasted for the rest of the war. So, let's get back to what happened right after the battle. The Italian retreat was just a complete and utter disaster, and the rest of the world, especially their own allies, took notice.
The humiliation was immediate and it was severe.
The numbers really do speak for themselves. The Italians suffered up to 6,000 casualties. But almost as damaging was the sheer amount of equipment they lost. The victorious Republicans captured huge stockpiles of desperately needed weapons. We're talking tanks, artillery, trucks, ammo, all of it paid for by Mussolini. Oh, and the blow to Italian pride was immense. The mockery was coming from all sides. Get this, even Franco's own troops, their so-called allies, adapted a popular song just for the occasion. They'd sing that Guadalajara wasn't like Italy's easy colonial victory in Abyssinia, jeering that the Italians needed fewer trucks and more balls. Ouch. The British press even gave it a name, the Italian skedaddle. And Mussolini, as you can imagine, he was reportedly infuriated. So, while this was a massive morale boost for the Republic, the battle's real long-term impact was in the lessons it taught. All these military observers were watching Spain very, very closely as Europe slid closer and closer to a Second World War. Guadalajara pretty much became a textbook case of what not to do. It was a real wake-up call. It proved that Blitzkrieg wasn't some kind of magic formula. It was useless without air superiority. It showed just how easily armored columns could get trapped by bad weather and tough terrain. It made it crystal clear that flimsy little tankettes were totally obsolete. And maybe above all, it was a brutal reminder that things like logistics, morale, and even the weather could be just as decisive as any weapon.
So think about this. Guadalajara saved Madrid for a time and gave the Republic a victory it desperately needed. It was a humiliating public failure for Mussolini and a huge lesson for the world's armies. And yet, 2 years later, Franco would march into Madrid and the Republic would be gone. It leaves us with a really fascinating question. In the grand sweep of history, what is the true legacy of a single, brilliant, but ultimately insufficient victory?